Welcome to the deep dive. If you are listening right now, you are probably trying to cut through the noise,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Trying to figure out what actually matters and just the massive amount of information out there.
Oh, there's so much noise.
Right. And today, our mission is to extract the absolute most fascinating insights from this sprawling, really intense conversation between Joe Rogan and hip-hop legend, filmmaker, and martial arts obsessive RZA.
It is honestly just a remarkable dialogue to unpack.
It really is.
But before we get into the weeds, I do want to give a quick disclaimer for you listening. We are going to touch on some highly charged topics today.
For sure.
Yeah, spanning healthcare, international politics, economics. So our goal here is simply to impartially convey the ideas and theories discussed by these two men.
Exactly.
We aren't taking sides. We aren't endorsing viewpoints. We are just unpacking the raw material they put on the table.
Yeah, and the scope of this material is wild. I mean, we are not just talking about music history here.
Not at all.
We're starting with ancient Shaolin morning routines, the brutal psychology of a street fight, and then somehow we navigate through the dark corporate machinery of the opioid crisis,
Yep.
the hidden blood in our smartphones, and all the way to a philosophical debate over fake Rolexes and lab-grown diamonds.
Which is a crazy leap. But while those topics might sound completely disconnected, if you look closely, there is a profound through line.
Right.
This entire conversation is really an exploration of a singular tension. It's the constant battle between human self-control, like our internal discipline, and the external forces of exploitation and artificiality that surround us in modern society.
So let's start right at the foundation of that self-control, right? The physical body.
Yeah, the physical vessel.
Because RZA talks extensively about his lifelong dedication to martial arts and this concept of moving qi, or internal energy. He describes his Shaolin Sifu, this instructor who's in his 60s, and he is so preserved he can effortlessly kiss his toes like a newborn baby.
Which is an incredible image of physical longevity.
Right.
But it's completely tied to a very rigid philosophy.
Yeah, a brutal one.
Exactly. The Sifu operates on this simple truth.
Huh?
In the Shaolin tradition, if you don't wake up, run the mountain, run back down, and do your chores, you simply do not eat.
Wow.
Yeah, sustenance isn't a right. It is earned through physical exertion and discipline.
And it goes beyond just cardio, Think about a standard rechargeable battery.
Okay, yeah.
If you fully charge it, but then you just leave it sitting in a drawer for years, never plugging it into anything, it doesn't just quietly lose power.
No, it corrodes.
Exactly. The energy becomes toxic. It leaks battery acid and ruins everything around it. And they argue human beings operate on that exact same mechanism.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. We are constantly generating and storing internal energy. And if we don't actively find a physical or mental release valve, that unused energy essentially leaks out as crippling anxiety.
And that is precisely why these ancient traditions incorporate such intense meditative practices right alongside the physical labor.
Yeah, like what?
We'll take the 8 pieces of brocade, which they discuss. The brocade refers to blockages in the body's energy pathways.
Okay.
One of the morning practices involves sitting in a lotus position, covering your ears, and physically tapping the back of your head right at the medulla.
Really? Just tapping it?
Yeah, you are literally creating a rhythmic vibration to knock loose mental fog and open your chakras. It's all about maintaining the battery so it doesn't corrode.
I mean, I love the discipline of that, but I have to push back a bit on the more idealistic side of martial arts theory. And to be fair, they actually debate this exact tension.
Yeah, they do.
Because there is this beautiful philosophy in arts like Tai Chi that claims, if you achieve ultimate mastery, you only need 4 ounces of energy to perfectly deflect 1,000 pounds of force.
Which sounds incredibly poetic.
It sounds amazing. But let's be real. If a 300-pound furious collegiate wrestler is charging at you, 4 ounces of energy is not going to do anything. You are getting crushed.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And they address that exact collision between theoretical discipline and the raw, unvarnished reality of combat.
Right.
Because martial arts are fundamentally designed to elevate human potential.
Right.
Like to give you self-realization.
Yeah.
But an actual street fight, a fight for your survival, that operates on an entirely different psychological and biological mechanism.
It's pure chaos.
Exactly. It abandons discipline for pure primal instinct.
Right. Like Rogan brings up Mike Tyson famously biting Evander Holyfield's ear.
Such a crazy moment.
It is. But Tyson was being outboxed skillfully. The rules weren't working for him, so his brain bypassed the sport entirely and resorted to a primal, unsanctioned act of violence just to survive the moment.
Or consider the even more extreme example they mentioned, this underground no-rules fight in Russia.
Oh, God, this part was rough.
It was brutal. A wrestler gets his opponent pinned on the ground and physically shoves his thumbs deep into the man's eyeballs until he taps out screaming.
Ugh, it's terrifying. But I guess it proves the point. To survive a true life or death scenario, you don't just need the right physical technique.
No, you don't.
You need a specific, dark, almost malevolent willpower. You have to be psychologically capable of permanently blinding another human being.
Yeah.
And the reality is, most of us simply do not possess that kind of ruthless, sociopathic switch.
Which is largely why society functions, honestly.
Fair point.
But it brings up the essential question. If we all have this chaotic, aggressive potential energy inside us, like the battery, but we aren't out there gouging eyes, what happens to it?
You have to channel it.
Exactly. You have to redirect that destructive psychological pressure into something constructive, or it destroys you.
And that is exactly the mechanism RZA used to survive his youth.
Yeah.
He talks about having this intense anger management problem. He possessed this almost Hulk-like rage to the point where he literally craved the sound of breaking glass. Yeah, he just wanted to shatter things, but instead of letting that violence put him in prison or a grave, he channeled that raw acoustic chaos into his art.
Right.
That desire to hear things break became the abrasive, legendary sound behind tracks like Bring the Ruckus.
And we see that same philosophical translation in his recent filmmaking, too. There is a brilliant scene in his new film, One Spoon of Chocolate, that captures this perfectly.
It's such a profound vignette.
Yeah, tell them about it.
So there's an angry military veteran living in a group home who completely loses his temper one morning. He is banging his spoon on the table, furious because he discovers there is only one single scoop of chocolate powder left in the tin.
He feels totally cheated.
Right, but then an older, wiser resident looks at him and delivers this incredibly stabilizing line. He says, "1 spoon of chocolate changes a whole glass of milk."
It's just a masterful way to explain how a tiny amount of potent substance or a tiny amount of concentrated effort can completely transform a much larger vessel. But what's even more fascinating is where RZA learned to look for that kind of wisdom in the first place.
Yeah, because if you think about the most profound life advice you have ever received, you probably picture a teacher or a successful mentor or a parent.
Sure.
But RZA reveals that the catalyst for his entire intellectual journey was a profoundly broken person. When he was just 11 years old, the man who convinced him to start reading and seeking knowledge was his uncle's friend who was an active heroin addict.
I mean, picture the psychology of that moment.
Yeah.
You have a man who is actively using heroin, literally nodding off in his stupor.
Yeah.
His life is objectively falling apart.
Yeah.
And yet, cutting through that narcotic haze, he looks at an 11-year-old boy and tells him with absolute crystalline clarity,
Yeah.
you have to get knowledge.
It's wild.
It really shows that philosophical truth isn't the exclusive property of scholars. Sometimes the most undeniable clarity comes from people who have lost absolutely everything else.
But you also can't ignore the devastating reality of that image.
Yeah.
You know, a human being possessing deep knowledge of self, yet utterly hollowed out and destroyed by a street drug.
Right.
And that tragic reality on the street level is actually the perfect lens for understanding the systemic, corporate version of that exact same exploitation.
Yeah, we're talking about the industrialization of addiction here.
Yeah.
This is where we move from the individual tragedy of heroin to the macro-level mechanics of the pharmaceutical industry.
The statistics they discuss are paralyzing. We are looking at upwards of 70,000 overdose deaths every single year in America, driven massively by the opioid crisis.
It's a staggering number.
And they make it very clear this wasn't an accidental side effect of modern medicine. The Sackler family and major pharmaceutical companies built a deliberate incentive structure.
Yep.
They financially rewarded sales representatives to push doctors into prescribing highly addictive pain management medication for conditions that just didn't warrant it, all while aggressively downplaying the addiction risks.
Because it fundamentally corrupted the medical oath.
Exactly.
When financial incentives are tied to the volume of prescriptions rather than the health of the patient, the entire system morphs into a machine that produces lifelong customers rather than cured individuals.
Yeah. Rogan actually shared a personal story that perfectly illustrates how aggressive this push was.
Oh yeah, the nose surgery.
Yeah. He goes in for a routine deviated septum surgery. They fix his nose. It's a success. And as he's leaving, The doctor hands him two different prescriptions for heavy, addictive opioids.
To casually.
Right. And Rogan declines, saying, "I'm not in any pain." And the doctor actually pushes back, insisting, "Well, you probably will be."
Wow.
He was proactively trying to introduce a highly addictive substance for a painless procedure just to fulfill that systemic push.
And they highlight an even more sociopathic extreme to show how far this profit motive can go. They discuss an oncologist who was caught intentionally diagnosing healthy patients with cancer.
So evil.
He was prescribing and physically administering chemotherapy to people who were perfectly fine.
Purely for the billing. Chemo is incredibly expensive, running 30 to 60 grand a pop. He was literally poisoning healthy people because the economic system rewarded him for doing so.
But to truly understand the mechanics of this, we really have to look at the broader economic philosophy without letting our political biases get in the way.
Okay, yeah.
Because Rogan and RZA present a really challenging counterargument regarding where we place the blame.
Right, so let me play devil's advocate here using their own comparison.
Do it.
We are universally horrified that opioids kill 70,000 people a year, but global obesity-related diseases kill over 2.8 million people every year.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, in the U.S. alone, it's up to 325,000 deaths annually. That completely dwarfs the opioid crisis. So, logically, should we make pizza illegal?
Right.
Should we ban fast food? I mean, there was a rumor floating around about McDonald's testing a $54 a month unlimited meal subscription.
Cool.
If a person actually lived off an unlimited fast food subscription, it would undeniably be lethal. Yet, it is completely legal and culturally accepted.
It's a brilliant stress test of our morality, honestly.
Yeah.
Because whether we are talking about a pain pill or an unlimited fast food subscription, the underlying mechanic is identical. It is the failure of a capitalist incentive structure when it intersects with human vulnerability.
Exactly.
The core problem isn't the mere existence of a drug or a cheeseburger. The catastrophe happens when an economic system intentionally rewards massive corporate entities for exploiting the abuse of those tools. The profit motive mathematically supersedes human well-being.
And that exact same incentive structure, prioritizing endless, staggering profit over human life, isn't just a domestic healthcare issue.
Not at all.
It is physically powering the device you are using to listen to us right now.
Yeah, we have to zoom out and look at the global supply chain, specifically the extraction of conflict minerals.
They dive really deep into the reality of cobalt mining. The lithium-ion batteries that are required to run our smartphones, our laptops, and the booming electric vehicle market rely heavily on cobalt mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Yeah.
And the reality of how that mineral gets out of the ground is just apocalyptic. We are talking about modern-day slavery.
It's horrifying.
Hundreds of thousands of people living on dirt floors in extreme poverty. Women with infants strapped to their backs, breathing in highly toxic dust, physically hacking this vital mineral out of the earth with hand tools.
And the geopolitical mechanics behind this are deeply entrenched. Massive foreign corporations, often Chinese tech monopolies, as they note, control these supply chains.
Right.
They pay off local military forces and corrupt government officials to maintain absolute control, ensuring the local workers are paid pennies while the corporations extract billions in value.
It creates a staggering cognitive dissonance for the modern consumer.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about how often people use their smartphones to go online and passionately virtue signal about human rights, labor laws, and morality, all while typing those righteous thoughts on a piece of glass powered by actual slave labor.
It is the ultimate paradox of modern convenience. And if you look at the history of the Congo, this specific mechanism of exploitation is terrifyingly consistent. Today's cobalt mines are a direct continuation of King Leopold of Belgium's occupation in the late 19th century.
The rubber trade.
Exactly. Back then, rubber was the critical commodity needed to power the Industrial Revolution. Millions of Congolese people were mutilated, enslaved, or killed to harvest rubber for Western profit.
Wow.
The required mineral is changed from rubber to cobalt, but the formula extracting maximum wealth by suppressing the local population remains entirely intact.
RZA actually pitches a structural solution to this. He points to the Alaska pipeline model.
Okay, yeah.
In Alaska, citizens receive a yearly royalty check, a direct cut of the profits from the oil being extracted from their public land.
Right, their permanent fund.
Exactly. He argues that since there are trillions of dollars of essential cobalt beneath the feet of the Congolese people, the population itself should be receiving a royalty which would instantly eradicate that extreme poverty.
I mean, economically, it is a perfectly equitable solution,
Hmm.
but they also map out exactly why the people in power will never allow it.
Why is that?
Corrupt, heavily armed governments purposely keep their populations impoverished, starving, and uneducated. If you build schools and educate a population, they realize the true global value of the dirt they are standing on.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The moment they realize their worth, they demand a fair share, and the foreign corporations' profit margins collapse. Keeping people in the dark is a calculated business strategy.
And we are more than happy to overlook that dark, authentic reality when it comes to the technology we rely on every day.
We really are.
But flip that script to luxury goods, and suddenly our psychology completely reverses. We suddenly demand total authenticity and violently reject artificiality, even when the artificial version is objectively flawless.
This is where we get into the strange, irrational psychology of human desire and value.
So let's look at diamonds. Scientists can now grow diamonds in a laboratory. And to be clear, these are not glass fakes like cubic zirconia.
Right, they are real.
They are molecularly identical to an Earth-grown diamond. You can buy a massive, visually flawless, lab-grown diamond for around $375,000.
It's a fortune, obviously.
Right. But if you miraculously found that exact same diamond, same clarity, same size, dug out of a mine, it would cost roughly $100 million.
It's just an absurd markup.
It is. A professional jeweler using a standard diamond tester cannot tell the difference because the physical and chemical properties are exactly the same. Yet when it comes to engagement rings, people overwhelmingly reject the lab-grown diamond.
And we see that exact same rejection in the high-end watch market. They discuss these new Chinese superclones of the Rolex Daytona.
Oh, I've heard about these.
Yeah, using advanced 3D scanning and manufacturing, these factories can replicate the authentic watch down to the microscopic gears, the specific weight of the steel, the exact sweep of the second hand.
That's insane.
A real Daytona might cost $30,000. The super clone costs $1,600. And it is engineered so perfectly that a professional watchmaker has to take the entire mechanism apart and use a microscope for hours just to figure out it didn't come from Switzerland.
But wait, I get the diamond, nature made it, so it's special. But a Rolex is just a machine built by humans in a factory.
Yeah, exactly.
If a different factory makes an exact replica that tells time just as well, why do we care? Think about a banana.
A banana.
Yeah, if a scientist grew a banana in a lab and it looked exactly like a tree-grown banana, had the exact same potassium, and tasted identical, you'd just eat it, you wouldn't care where it came from.
That's true.
So why do we completely reject a fake Rolex or a lab diamond if they perform their exact function with 100% visual perfection?
Because it reveals what we are actually purchasing, and it isn't utility.
Okay.
When a billionaire buys a $100 million Earth-grown diamond, they are not buying compressed carbon. They are buying the incomprehensible span of geologic time. They mention a natural diamond that is 1.18 billion years old.
Mind-blowing.
You are buying the heat, the pressure, and the age of the Earth itself.
And the Rolex.
You aren't buying a tool to tell time. Your phone does that with satellite accuracy. You are buying 100 years of Swiss engineering history.
Right.
You're buying the specific serial number, the legacy of the craftsman, the investment value. We deeply crave the provenance of an item. In a modern world where technology can artificially replicate absolutely anything with zero flaws, authenticity becomes a proxy for human struggle, history, and time.
We want the story behind the object.
Exactly.
And that deep, irrational craving for provenance bleeds right into how we choose to experience art and entertainment.
And RZA brings this into focus through his immense passion for traditional cinema over the modern streaming experience.
He is such a purist. For one spoon of chocolate, he refused to just point a crisp digital camera and upload the file to a server.
No, of course not.
He specifically shot the movie using 1950s-style anamorphic lenses. And for those who don't know, an anamorphic lens physically compresses a super wide field of view onto standard film.
Right.
It bends the light in a very specific way, creating those iconic horizontal cinematic lens flares and a slightly imperfect dreamlike image. And then he took it a step further by printing the movie on actual physical 35mm film for an exclusive theatrical run at the Vista Theater in Hollywood.
The tactile, mechanical nature of actual film rolling through a projector is crucial to him. But there's an even deeper layer of provenance attached to that specific screening.
Yeah, this detail is incredible. The 35mm premiere at the Vista was scheduled for April 22nd.
Okay.
Inside the world of the film, April 22nd is the exact date the main character marks on his calendar for his release from jail. But in real life, April 22nd, 1992 is the exact date that RZA was acquitted of a major crime where he was facing 8 years in a penitentiary. He calls that day his rebirth. He literally went from being Prince Rakeem to the RZA on that specific day.
That gives me chills. By aligning those dates, he embeds a living, breathing human history into the physical screening of that film.
It's so cool.
It ceases to be just content that you passively consume on a laptop.
All right.
It becomes a physical artifact of his survival.
But look at the technological titans it's competing against right now.
Oh, sure.
They discuss the terrifyingly good immersive tech coming out. You have the Apple Vision Pro headsets isolating you in a perfect digital world. You have AMC's new ScreenX surrounding your peripheral vision with 270 degrees of screen.
Yeah.
You have the Sphere in Las Vegas where for $167 you can sit in a plush seat, but the screen makes you feel like you are physically sitting cage side at a UFC fight, getting blood splattered on you.
It's a completely different experience.
So the ultimate question is, will this flawless, hyper-immersive technology eventually replicate and replace the magic of a shared theater? Or will we always need the crackle of real film?
If we synthesize everything we've explored today, human psychology points heavily toward needing the real thing. Technology is an undeniably powerful tool.
Right.
Whether we are talking about AI, which RZA brilliantly suggests we should rebrand as assisted intelligence rather than artificial, or a flawless superclone watch, or a VR headset, they are mechanical miracles.
But they're sterile.
Exactly. They lack the friction of human existence. Think about an audiophile who meticulously cleans a vinyl record and places the needle on the groove, rather than just tapping a lossless digital track on their phone.
That's a great comparison.
Humans will continuously seek out communal, tactile experiences. We want the pop, the hiss, and the physical grain of the film. We want to sit in a dark room with 100 strangers and feel the collective tension shift in the room. Because ultimately, the flaws, the physical mechanics, and the shared space are what make the art feel authentic.
That is a phenomenal way to tie it all together. We have covered massive ground today.
We really have.
We started with the physical grounding of Shaolin martial arts and purging the toxic energy from our internal batteries. We navigated the brutal mechanics of corporate exploitation, from the pharmaceutical greed driving the opioid crisis to the conflict minerals silently powering our smartphones.
Yeah.
And we ended up exploring our deep psychological obsession with authenticity, why we demand provenance in our diamonds, our luxury watches, and the way we physically experience cinema.
It's a vast journey, but it leaves us with one final critical thought to chew on as we navigate this increasingly digital era.
Lay it on us.
Well, as our technology becomes exponentially better at creating perfect artificial replicas, whether that is an AI-generated song that perfectly mimics your favorite artist, a flawless lab-grown diamond, or a virtual reality environment that is visually indistinguishable from the physical world, will the flaws of human effort become our ultimate luxury?
Oh, wow.
In a future where absolute perfection is cheap, digital, and infinitely mass-produced, perhaps the only things that will hold true, undeniable value, are the things that carry the scars, the imperfections, and the messy history of how they were made.
That is definitely something to mull over. Look at your own life, your own camera roll, the things you keep on your desk. How much of what you truly value is perfect, and how much of it is valuable precisely because of the messy human context behind it. Keep your internal battery moving, channel your energy into something real, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.